You ever been in a room with someone fighting battles you can't see? They're snapping, bitter, maybe self-destructing in slow motion, and every word you try to say just fuels the fire. Here's the hard truth. You can't talk demons out of someone, but you can silence them, and the most powerful part, you don't even need to say a single word. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share can change your relationships, your emotional control, and even save you from burnout. This isn't about fixing other people. It's about owning your energy so fiercely that it dismantles chaos the moment it enters the room. You walk into a room, and before you speak a word, you've already said everything. That's the power of your energy. It's the first language every human being speaks, even if they're not aware of it. Long before you open your mouth, people have already read you, your mood, your vibe, your intention. And when someone is battling their inner demons, anxiety, insecurity, trauma, they're scanning for energy that either threatens their chaos or anchors them. Your presence can do both. That's why your energy matters more than any motivational quote you throw at them or advice you're tempted to give. Imagine someone's barely holding it together, filled with rage or fear, spiraling into self-doubt, and you walk in with centeredness, with a calm that isn't performative, but real anchored in self-control and clarity. What you're actually doing is introducing a new frequency into that space, a signal that there's another way to be, that silence, that grounded presence, that's not passive, it's a disruption. You are interrupting their loop of panic or anger without confrontation. And you don't have to say, calm down. You just have to be calm. You don't have to say, you're okay. You just have to radiate that you are okay, and it's safe to match that energy. The truth is, most people in emotional distress are not looking for words. They're looking for signals. They want to feel like someone else in the room isn't about to tip over, that someone else is safe, and your energy becomes that evidence. You become the mirror. If they see frantic behavior mirrored back, their demons feel justified. But if they see peace, strength, and a refusal to panic, something starts to shift. Maybe not immediately, maybe not even noticeably, but over time your energy becomes more than presence. It becomes permission. Permission to breathe, permission to pause, permission to consider that their fear, rage, or sadness doesn't have to own the space. That's what energy does. It shapes emotional landscapes, and the best part, you don't have to raise your voice or win an argument. You just need to master your presence. Because in a world full of noise, the person who walks in calm, composed, and clear is the one who turns heads, not with what they say, but with what they don't. Chaos is contagious, but so is calm. Every room you enter carries an emotional temperature, and whether you realize it or not, you either contribute to the heat or cool it down. The most grounded person in the room isn't the one who talks the loudest or dominates the conversation. It's the one who maintains composure when everything around them is spinning out of control. Emotional maturity is measured by your ability to stay centered, not just for your own sake, but because your energy becomes a thermostat for everyone else. When someone is spiraling, panicking, shouting, crying, they are looking for stability, even if their actions suggest otherwise. Deep down, their nervous system is searching for a place to land. And when you refuse to get pulled into their chaos, when you stay calm and unshakable, you become that place. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough to not lose yourself in their storm. Most people are reactive. They get triggered, they match the intensity, they escalate. But the person who is grounded becomes the anchor. That kind of energy doesn't fight chaos. It absorbs it and neutralizes it. There is incredible strength in not responding the way someone expects. When you stay rooted, you disrupt the pattern, you force a reset. That person might still be yelling, venting, spiraling, but the moment they realize you're not matching it, something inside them starts to slow down. It might be subtle. It might take time, but the nervous system recognizes safety when it feels it, and nothing feels safer than someone who refuses to abandon themselves just because someone else has lost their grip. People often think leadership is about speaking, guiding, or correcting, but true leadership shows up in how you handle energy. The most grounded person in the room sets the tone, not by control, but by example. You walk in, and your calm becomes a counterbalance to their chaos. You model emotional regulation by living it in real time. You become the steady pulse in the middle of emotional noise, and that steadiness changes everything. Think of those moments when someone is venting, unraveling, or completely losing control. Everything in you wants to step and offer advice, challenge their thinking, maybe even match their energy just to be heard. But what if the most powerful response isn't a reaction at all? What if the real strength lies in doing nothing, intentionally? Stillness is often mistaken for weakness, but in truth, it's one of the highest forms of strength. When you choose to stay still, not as an escape but as an act of presence, you create a space where someone else's chaos doesn't infect your calm. That stillness isn't silence out of fear, it's silence out of power. You're not pulling away, you're not ignoring, you're holding space, without judgment, without force, without needing to fix. And that space, it's rare, it's healing. When someone is emotionally flooded, their brain is in survival mode. Logic shuts down, words become weapons or noise, and any attempt to reason with them can feel like an attack. But your stillness says something different. It says, I'm not afraid of your pain. I don't need to run from it. I don't need to fix it. I can hold this moment without crumbling. That kind of grounded presence sends a signal to their nervous system. Here, you're safe. Here, you're not being pushed. Here, you can breathe. And over time, that energy becomes a mirror. They begin to feel your regulation and, often unconsciously, start to sync with it. That's the magic of stillness. You don't control the person. You don't overpower the emotion. You invite calm by being calm. And even if they don't respond right away, even if the storm keeps raging, your refusal to move, to react, to escalate, it changes the dynamic. It's a reset button, a quiet revolution, a reminder that peace doesn't shout, it just is. Most people underestimate the impact of their silence, assuming it's the absence of action, but in reality, silence, when intentional, is one of the most commanding tools you possess, especially when someone is consumed by their demons, whether it's anger, anxiety, shame, or fear. Your refusal to be pulled into their emotional spiral sends a louder message than words ever could. When you choose not to react, not to argue, not to defend, you're doing something incredibly powerful. You're taking control of the energy in the room. Silence in the face of chaos is not avoidance. It's emotional mastery. It's recognizing that you don't have to validate every outburst with a response. You don't need to meet every provocation with noise. In fact, when someone is spiraling, reacting often adds fuel. But when you remain silent and grounded, you're holding up a mirror. You're showing them the contrast between their inner turmoil and your inner calm. And while they might resist it at first, deep down, something shifts. Your silence becomes a wall they can't push through and a space they can't control. It forces a moment of reflection, even if it's only internal, because demons feed off reaction. They thrive on attention, drama, escalation, but they choke in the presence of stillness. The more you hold your line, the more you reinforce that their chaos isn't welcome in your space. It's not about shutting someone down. It's about refusing to let dysfunction dictate the emotional tone. This isn't coldness or disconnection. It's strength under pressure. It's saying without words, I won't join your storm. You are not abandoning the person, you are just not giving their demons a stage. And in a world that tells us we must always speak up, sometimes the most revolutionary act is to stay quiet and composed. Not out of fear, but out of intention, because your silence, when rooted in clarity and confidence, becomes the one thing that cannot be argued with. You don't teach people how to be emotionally mature by lecturing them. You show them, you become the model. You walk into a room where someone is spiraling, attacking, or losing their grip, and instead of joining their chaos, you remain grounded, steady, and fully present. That's leadership, not the kind that demands authority, but the kind that radiates it. People don't remember what you told them when they were in pain. They remember how you made them feel. And when you embody calm, when you move with intention instead of impulse, you give them something they might not even know they need, an example, a visual, emotional blueprint of how to regulate. Your actions become a silent education. You're showing them that it's possible to feel deeply and still not lose control. That strength doesn't come from overpowering emotions, but from holding space for them without drowning in them. When you lead without words, you give others the opportunity to rise without feeling criticized or corrected. They watch how you breathe through tension, how you listen without interrupting, how you maintain eye contact without flinching. And without realizing it, they start to mirror that energy. Because leadership like this doesn't provoke, it inspires. The person you're sitting across from might be at their lowest, and your instinct might be to step in, rescue, or fix. But sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is hold your own center, be the steady rhythm in a moment full of emotional noise, show them what regulation looks like in real time. That example can plant a seed that words never could. Because people may resist your advice, but they can't argue with your energy. They feel it, and they start to believe, maybe for the first time, that there's another way to handle what they're feeling. You don't force change, you reflect it. You don't speak over their pain. You become the calm presence that shows them who they could be, just by being who you are. Healing doesn't always begin with a breakthrough conversation. Sometimes it begins with a presence that doesn't flinch. When someone is battling inner demons, they're not just dealing with surface emotions. They're facing years of unspoken pain, fear, guilt, or self-doubt. And in that state, words often fall flat. In fact, the wrong words, even well-intentioned ones, can feel like an attack, but what never fails is a presence that refuses to leave, not the kind of presence that tries to fix, interrupt, or cheerlead, but the kind that says, I see you, I'm not afraid of what you're going through, and I'm not going anywhere. That's how you silence demons in others, by being unshakably present. You don't try to out-talk their pain. You don't try to push them to get over it. You simply hold the space that says, this storm won't scare me off. And in that space, something remarkable happens. The person in pain doesn't feel alone. For perhaps the first time, they're being met, not managed. And even if they don't say it, they feel it. They feel your quiet strength. They feel that they're not being judged or rushed or fixed. They feel safe. And safety is where healing starts. You can't force someone to drop their armor with your words, but your consistent, calm presence can match. So, here's the truth most people miss. You don't need to shout to be powerful. You don't need to convince anyone to heal, to change, or to rise. The most transformative thing you can do for someone battling their demons isn't to give them advice, it's to be the example. Your calm becomes the cure, your stillness becomes the signal, your grounded presence, your silence, your refusal to match chaos, that's what teaches, that's what leads, that's what heals, and it starts with you choosing to be the most emotionally mature person in the room. Every time, not because it's easy, but because it's effective, because the moment you stop trying to change people with your words and start showing them what emotional strength looks like, you become unstoppable. This isn't about fixing people. It's about embodying peace so fully that their demons can't survive in your energy. That's how you silence them, Without saying a single word, now go out there and be that presence. The one that doesn't flinch, doesn't fight, doesn't fold. The one that stands so steady in chaos, others find their footing just by being near you. Because that's what real power looks like.